Oh, that was exciting, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was.
Welcome, one and all, to another episode of Problem Busters, which we happen to be recording using Zencaster. That music was actually played live, and I'm still smarting from the excitement, Jonathan.
Yes. I mean, Zencaster. We were actually early adopters. Well, you were an early adopter of
This is true.
of this lovely new tech, and they've recently had a, for lack of better words, a facelift, like improved UI, improved features.
You might even say a round of investment.
You really might. So we've got the soundboard now, so we can add in different sounds as we go along. Would be quite funny if we do have any guests on Problem Busters and we start sounding off different sound effects. Probably not appropriate for some of our guests, but still, it's always good to have the option in it.
It is, and just so everybody knows, I would be into it if it was appropriate because sound effects are rad.
Yes. Do you know what? I think we should have applause and just applaud people, because I don't think people get enough applause.
Yeah, enough applause.
Yeah, enough
Clapses. So we've actually got a new idea. Do you want to tell everybody about it?
Yes. I think we've aptly named it Happy Good News. Oliver Happy.
Jonathan Goodwin. Like what we did there.
Exactly. Exactement, as we would say on the continent. We decided that we should cover some good news, things that sort of pop up in our streams on a daily basis. I think it's going to be a bit more lighthearted. We're not going to go into too much depth of these topics, but it's good to give you a good sense of positive news here now and then.
Yeah. It's really easy to lose track of just how much good stuff is happening in the world and just how many people are engaged in things that are really making a difference, right? Small things and large things. And,
yes.
And we figure we can sum it up and give it to you direct to your earlobes, nice and easy while you walk the dog.
Yeah. And you know what they say, life is all about balance.
Exactly. So let's start with the big one.
Yes.
So The Guardian this week had a piece on the world's biggest carbon capturing machine. How cool is that? This thing looks amazing. It's all pipes and ratchets and
steampunky, and
exactly,
it's so cool. And it's in Iceland of all places as well, which is also so cool. Oh, dad jokes. You never get tired of them.
No, not at all. And I'm sure your kids don't either, even if they tell you they do.
I know. They don't even understand my jokes and they laugh. And I dread the day that they actually start to understand my jokes and I start getting the rolling eyes and the...
True story. My dad still tells us the story about that day and how everything changed for him in terms of humor when we stopped laughing at his jokes and started saying, Dad, I've heard it before. So enjoy it while you can, my friend.
Exactly. It'll be a tough crowd in the morning soon. Oh, no.
So as the engineer in the room, why don't you tell us a little bit about how this thing works? Because to me, it looks cool and it captures carbon and it puts it in the earth and I'm happy, but I know you know a little bit more.
Oh, yes. So it's effectively it's a large plant designed to suck in carbon dioxide, mix it with, I think it's salt water, pump it back down into the earth, and then it eventually solidifies and turns into like a solid carbon kind of chunk. It's really interesting, actually, because this is one of the first plants of its kind. So again, with technology, you're not always going to get the best version of something the first way around, right? They'll probably go around that route of just gradual improvement as time goes on. I think they're saying it pulls around 800 tons of carbon dioxide out of the... No, 800 tons was 8,000 tons. Oof,
4,000.
4,000 tons, which is the equivalent to 800 cars. There we go.
Which doesn't sound like it's going to change everything, right? But I have heard people talk about this and say, yes, but when you catch a flight, let's make this real. If you could pay a couple of pounds extra on top of your flight, that would carbon offset it using a machine like this to drill that down into the earth and mineralize it. So that starts to make it real, doesn't it? When we take this idea and scale it, that's what you're
Yeah,
saying, right?
yeah, yeah. Because it's not like a theoretical saving, is it? It's a literal. Well, they're literally pulling it from the air, so you can quantify that as a unit. So whatever you do with that, you know that you've taken a unit of that carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and stored it. So I
It's
think that's
just
really interesting. I think that's
it's
grand.
amazing. Yeah, it made my week.
Yeah.
Awesome. And of course, these are in the show notes, so you can go to the articles and find out more. What else do we
Yes.
have?
Yes. Yes. So the next item that came across our very busy problem busty desks is the low cost rail firm called Lumo that are looking to provide an
Mm.
alternative to flying in the UK and I think eventually Europe. Um, so Lumo, they've described themselves as a low cost, low carbon rail firm. Um,
So, what does
and
that mean?
so they're, well, low cost in the sense that they want 60% of their fares to be less than £30.
That's
Um,
awesome. So,
yes.
for the listeners in other parts of the world, £30 is not going to get you very far on an English train, right?
Yes, it's not. It's not. It's not at all. It's not at all. And what's really good is the first few one-way tickets are starting off at sort of less than half that at £14.90. Um, and for that, I think they're starting in on the 25th of October 2021. So that's actually pretty much now, or quite soon in the next couple months. And a number of their destinations, well, they have a number of destinations around the UK. So I think Newcastle, Stevenage, Edinburgh is quite an interesting one as well. So
Mm,
what you'd do is you would catch it from, I think, King's Cross, and you just make your way up to Edinburgh, and people just hop off. So they'll
that's
run
cool.
four trains a day. Um, and yeah, and they're going to add some more destinations in 2022.
So, what does
Um,
this tell us? This tells us that I like answering my own questions. That
so do I. So do I. I learned so much.
brilliant. So it tells us that not only are people interested in low carbon travel, but there are enough folks that think this is a good idea that they funded a train to replace some flights. That's quite a step forward, right? It's a massive step forward from talking about it to funding it to building it to launching it, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And also, don't you think? I'm not sure how often you've taken trains around different countries, but one train I took in the States was the Amtrak, and we went around Pennsylvania. And although it's not a green train because I think it's half diesel, half electric. They switch it on and off when they go around the mountains. Um, but it's just a more enjoyable journey, just looking out the window and seeing scenery, rather
Yeah.
than being on a plane above the clouds, not really seeing much.
Or being in a car, right? Because a car is
Yes,
one person in a car is certainly not as good as one seat on a train for carbon, right?
exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
and
I love
uh,
trains.
yes, yeah,
Absolutely love them.
yeah,
And
I
and
do
one of the
as
best
well.
journeys that I've done, although it's not as exotic at all as what you've just shared, is uh, is between Praha and Budapest. So going from
Oh,
the Czech Republic over to Hungary, and uh, and it's just amazing because you see the backwoods, right?
yeah,
Not the bits that the freeways take you
yes,
into,
yeah,
and you see these houses, and it's like going back in time. I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah, so do I. I saw my very first ghost town on a train in Pennsylvania. I was like, "Whoa!"
What's that like?
Oh, it was a bit eerie as well, actually, because you'd see it's like a whole town, but it's just got like it's got all not the infrastructure obviously, but it's got the buildings. You can see old bars. You can see where like the old I guess pharmacy places used to be and housing, and you just think like nobody everybody just got up and left. What would it have been like to be the last person there? because there's always one who really doesn't want to leave. But
It would have been
yeah,
strange,
it would have
and
been
you
very
got to wonder
strange.
why as well, right? Like how did people realize that it wasn't time to have a town there anymore? I
Yeah.
wonder. Part of me wonders if some of these towns are in areas that we've built plants and therefore towns to do a
Mm.
certain thing, like chop down trees,
Yeah.
dig things out of the ground in terms of mining,
Yes.
and then over time we've realized that we'd like to have a more clean way of transport, and we don't want to use as much oil, and therefore we don't need a refinery there or a town,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just purely, um, I don't want to say economics, but sometimes you see that um, a funding from a company or part of government says, you know what, I want to build a road and I don't want it to pass this town.
Yeah, the bypass.
Yes,
Dun,
the
dun,
bypass. Dun,
dun.
dun, dun. See, that's the sound we need as well, don't we?
That actually happened to a town in New Zealand called Huntly, which
Mm,
locals used to call Muntley. Nothing
yeah,
against the people of Huntly; it's a lovely little town. But the amazing pie shop, which is how you judge how good a pit stop is in New Zealand,
naturally.
and that got fully bypassed by a road,
What?
and it was a bit of a shame, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So last time I was over in New Zealand, I took great delight coming off at that point of bypassing the bypass and going to the
Yeah.
pie shop.
Oh, it's still there. That's
Oh
good.
yeah,
Oh, is that a bit of positive news as well?
the pie shop has lasted.
Yes.
And moving right along. So,
Yes.
and another one from the Guardian: the UK's green economy is nearly 4 times larger than the manufacturing sector. 4 times, Jonathan.
That is huge. Four
More
times
than
huge. Yes.
indeed. So
Yeah.
75,000 businesses that employ 1.2 million people are in the so-called green economy,
Hmm.
which I take to be working on things that are renewable, sustainable, and improve life and climate. And that's worth £200, 200,000, 200.
I was like, oh, that's
I feel like Dr.
it's-
Evil. £200 billion,
oh,
which is massive. I mean,
I
that
know. I love
is
numbers like that
absolutely
because
huge.
I can't imagine how big 200 billion is in terms of like just the sheer workforce and infrastructure
Hmm.
to sustain a low carbon economy, and it's kind of like complex as well, isn't it? So it's from, I guess, wind turbines to wave technology to solar panels,
And
um,
recycling.
to recycling. Yeah, recycling is a big piece of that, isn't it?
Yeah,
um, because I think yeah, in recycling it's quite a bit because not everything's automated. That's a good thing about I guess the size of it is that people that were in the manufacturing industry, you would hope could transition over and the government would help facilitate that.
exactly.
Um, I know there's been some political statements recently with, I think, between Labour and the Conservative Party about capitalising on the green economy.
Hmm.
But I think this supersedes all of that. To be fair,
Yeah, and
you know,
I've actually seen this in Australia, and I
mm,
had a stint helping get people jobs, and part of that was getting people jobs on a recycling production line, and they were doing exactly what you've suggested. They'd transitioned from other manufacturing jobs into this production line, which effectively meant a group of people in really comfortable situation.
hmm.
Things are coming past nice and slow, and they're sorting the plastic as it comes
Ooh,
past. Not high tech, right?
yeah,
But very immediately available.
yeah, and that's what you want. That's really what you want, because you don't want to leave people sort of left behind
Yeah.
in terms of, oh, you can only do this job if you're a programmer, or you can only do this job if you've got 5 mechanical degrees. It's
And
kind of,
to be
you
honest,
know,
I kind of feel that is that's a big thing for a lot of movements and a lot of directions that we move in, right?
yeah.
To include people, not exclude them. So, for example, the cover photo on this particular article in the Guardian is wind farms, and I know that wind farms are synonymous with generating energy in a sustainable way. But I look at that and I think, yeah, could I build a wind farm?
Yeah, because you do.
I'm
That's
glad they've got a
yeah,
wind farm,
yeah.
but
But
if
yeah,
it's
could I?
yeah, and there's things that are a lot more, dare I say it, grassroots, and
Yeah.
a lot more accessible, which are making a huge difference, aren't they?
Yeah, and the barrier to entry as well. Because if you're like, oh, I want to help, how can I help? I want to transition from, let's say, I'm working in retail, and I believe that my company is not necessarily, low carbon or is contributing to additional pollution
Fast
in the
fashion,
environment.
or yeah,
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 then you can say, well, I just want to transition, and right there and then, there's a job you can go into in an industry that you love with the skill set that you currently have that you
yeah,
can move into it, and it's
yeah,
just kind of like, yeah, you don't have to. I like that. I really do like that.
yeah,
I'm all about accessibility, and that's
yeah,
why, I'm not going to go into it about football, but but I like the accessibility. You don't need a degree like in some of the
yeah,
sports in the States. You don't need a degree. You don't need to go through certain
no.
places and this and that. It's just kind of
Just
like,
kick it around the car park if that's all you've got.
yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
like
for the women and men. It's for the people. It's
that.
for it's for everybody. You know.
Yeah, yeah, agreed,
Um.
agreed.
You know.
And it's. I think it also comes down to the fact that that nothing in life is black or white, right?
Exactly.
There are certainly businesses and activities that are quite dark grey,
Yes.
right? Like maybe if I was to produce tobacco or something like that, you might say that's quite a dark grey.
Yes.
And there are obviously businesses and activities that are very light grey and very close to white, like I don't know, teaching people a new skill or
Yeah.
recycling plants or whatever it might be. But the
Yeah.
important thing is there's plenty along the way, and it's really exciting to see people, at least around me, starting to they'll say things like, I've got this new job and I'm really excited about it. And the next thing they might say, and I've had a couple of examples of this, is it's in an industry that I really care about. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to go for it, that's super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. I think the love of something, especially when it comes to work, really does make the difference because you get a lot of new ideas. I think it's just inspirational,
Yeah.
and you feel like you feel like you're a part of something larger than yourself, which is what a lot of people want to, feel.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
And that's a nice little segue, Jonathan. Thank you very much.
Hmm.
Into an article that came up in positive.news, which we love.
Yes.
And that is also inclusion based. Did you know that until very recently, and until we had an NHS rule change,
Hmm.
that gay and bisexual men could not donate blood until June this year? I think that's outrageous.
Yeah.
And I think it's so exciting that now everybody can donate blood because, of course, they should be able to, right?
Yes, I think it was counterintuitive as well to say that, if you're a gay man, you can't give blood, but then we need more men giving blood. You're like, you're like, yeah, hold on a second. That doesn't make any sense. I followed a bit of it in the States because I think last year or the year before, the United States they changed the rules on it as well, and because it's rather than um have the rules. It's all about accessibility again. I think I think the theme accessibility and fairness. Because if you think about it, if you have HIV
Hmm.
or a bloodborne disease, so say if you have a bloodborne disease and you're um, a woman, they're not going to treat you the same way as they would a gay man without a bloodborne disease. It's really odd
Yeah.
that the screening questions and the way they screen you was not a bit more, okay, let's test you. What's your sexual activity in the past 6 months?
Yeah.
Um, you
Maybe it
know,
doesn't
be,
matter who it was with because what matters is how clean your blood is, right?
exactly, because they say that the sexual activity, whether it's with a man or a woman, is a key factor in donating blood because HIV, if I'm not mistaken, has do they call it a latency period before it
Yeah, I think
shows
they
up in
do.
your blood? So you've got like maybe a few months before it actually shows up in your blood.
Mm.
So if they say, "Oh, when was the last time you had sexual contact with somebody?" and you say, "Oh, it was yesterday," and I'm like, "Oh, there's probably a bit of a high risk. Let's screen it. Let's screen the blood and see how that goes." Um, or just have the infrastructure around it to be more neutral.
Yes.
or more
Yeah.
fair, because it's
More
so weird. You go
inclusive.
in, yeah, you go in. Oh, excuse me, are you gay or bisexual? And you say yes, and they're like, yeah, sorry, you can't give blood. And you're like,
Yeah.
but I want to save like a family member. They're like, nah.
Yeah, yeah, and we can be a bit smarter
Yeah,
than that, right?
yeah.
So,
Oh, a
so, and
lot
what's
smarter.
and what's really cool about this is it's an example of someone doing something because it matters to them, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I think we should actually have this chap Ethan Spivey on the show because
Ooh,
he effectively had a grandfather who was saved by a transfusion, a blood transfusion, and was wanting to donate blood. Found that he was blocked due to this sexual preference technicality, as I consider it, a system that needed to adapt and become more inclusive. And so he launched this group called Freedom to Donate. And that has helped to educate and drive through a more inclusive policy. So shout out to him and the team. Well done.
yes, yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that. This screams of you hear those old army stories of black people trying to join the army in the States, and they're like, "Oh, you can't join the navy because you can't swim. Black people can't swim. Your bones are dense. So you're going to sink." You're like, "What?
Oh,
What's that
wow.
about?" I know it's just screams. It just screams a lot of that. But NHS, good for the rule change.
Yep. Well done.
And yes, more blood in the system to save more lives.
As if you
So,
didn't need more enough, as if you didn't need any more reasons to love the NHS for the last year and a half. Let's just
hmm
do a little shout out in here to
yes,
all of the people that were involved in a year and a half identifying and isolating a new virus that had not been seen before and manufacturing. What was it, 4 or 5 different kinds of COVID vaccine and distributing them globally to almost everybody in a
mm,
year and a half.
yes, and
Stunning.
the testing as well. The testing on top of
Absolutely.
that is just because without testing as well, it's just kind of would have been because. Oh, could you imagine? We didn't have the vaccine, but could you imagine not having tests as well,
Yeah.
especially rapid tests? Oh no.
Yeah.
So yes, shout outs to everybody. Vaccine to genome mapping to
Yeah. Yeah.
you know to the essential workers as well. Amazon delivery people,
Yeah.
food
Absolutely.
delivery people, corner store delivery
The
people.
volunteers that
Oh, the
volunteered their time
charities. Yeah.
to be there to guide people through when when you turned up for the first jab and you're a
Mm-hmm.
bit nervous but you're kind of excited, and there's
Yeah.
just all these people that are super nice and they're like, just come over here, just sit down here. Everything was just flawless and it was
Yeah.
all volunteers. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And I didn't
And
have a queue when I went to get my jab, which was really good. I just walked in, sat down. She's like, "How do you feel?" I said, "A bit nervous." She was like, "Okay, beep."
job done. Would you like a
Job
biscuit?
done. Yeah. Oh god,
They
gotta
are
love it.
good people, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. What else have we got on
Cool.
our list?
I think there is introducing the Climate Cafe, where you drink tea and talk global warming. I didn't really read through this one
That's all
as
right. I
much
found
as
it.
the others. I
I
was
love your level of honesty. It's really
yes,
healthy.
I have to be so honest. I was too busy loving the old carbon capturing.
Show me the technology.
Exactly.
So effectively, what's happened here is Rebecca Nesta of a group called Climate Psychology Alliance, which is a group that explores psychological impact of climate crisis,
Mm,
wanted to get a group of regular meetings together in her hometown of Oxford. Also has a university, you might have heard of it, and they. So these climate cafe meets were people getting together to talk about something that is on their minds, that's important to them, and during the hottest summer on record in the UK, which was 2018. It's continued until today, and it's grown. And I just think this is a classic example of, if you look back to 2018, there were certain politicians in the world who, for whatever reasons known only to them, were moving the climate debate aside and putting other things forward, right? And it's great to know that even then, there were people who didn't listen to that and made up their own minds and got together and talked about things that were concerning them. So, well done. I like that.
yes, yes. Yeah, I love that too. I've just seen a so one of the things that sort of jumped out was it was loosely based on deaf cafes. where people
Mm.
talk about death a bit openly and stuff like that. And recently, my mum passed away, and I think speaking with a lot of people, we interviewed Daryl Woodhouse actually on Problem Busters,
Mm.
and we had a good chat, and it really does help. I mean, I've got siblings as well, and
Mm.
everyone around me, yourself, Ollie, family, friends, and yeah, speaking about it really, really did help. And I think these types of open forums where people don't necessarily have that um, supportive network or that network around them really does help.
And I
Really, really
think
does.
it's great to hear that people are doing it because it's it's not the sort of thing you slip into conversation with your friends, right?
Mm,
Even if you need to talk about it. So
yeah, yeah, and um, mental health is always a thing, and
yeah,
you know, healthy mind, healthy body, healthy mind. So
yeah.
yes, so shout outs. That's a really good and positive movement. So
Absolutely.
yes,
And there are a large number, particularly of indigenous cultures, try saying that fast, who get together and have for a long time and have a different opinion on death. So,
yes,
so the way that I was brought up to view death is not the only way. That's what I've
mm,
learned. And
mm,
to some, passing over the veil or whatever they might call it is the cause for celebration. And I think we've got a lot to learn from different groups and how they deal with something that is inevitable, right?
yes, yes, we do.
Indeed. Right. Next on our list,
Hmm.
um, rewilding. So I hadn't actually
Ooh,
come across rewilding until I came to the UK. And I went to a place to do some glamping, which is glamorous camping.
Oi.
And that basically means someone else sets the tent up for you, right? And I feel a little bit smaller when I say that, but I did enjoy the fact that it was already there. And the bathroom was already there and nice and easy. And so the point is, we went out for a walk through this place, which was effectively just a farm in Sussex, which is about sort of an hour southwest of London. And these folks had quite a while ago, like maybe even in the 80s, had decided that they really wanted to turn this farm back into what it was before people arrived,
Ooh.
which, if we're talking about England, I don't know, how long ago is that? Thousands, right?
Yes, yes.
Thousands of years. So for thousands of years, this land has looked like this in terms of trees gone, farmland, cattle and sheep, etc. Little fence, walkway. That's it, right? And so what they've done is just started to bring in people who understood the local environment and would be able to tell them what kind of birds they should have and all that sort of stuff. All these people got involved and planted trees from the local community. They built a community center. It's really, really cool. And what's amazing is how quickly forests grow. And you might say, well, in 30 to 40 years, you don't get that much. But you'd be surprised how
Mm,
even oaks and slow growth forests will grow a significant amount in our lives from day dot. So this particular one is called the Monk's Wilderness Experiment, which was a rewilding study that happened 60 years ago, which is
oof.
that's a pretty long time
Yeah.
ago. And it's in Cambridge, which also has a university. You may have heard of it, Jonathan.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes, I have. Yes. I
And
like.
go on.
No, I was saying I like the note that was left by, I think that he was a director at the time, um, Kenneth Mellenby, I think. The
Right.
note was this: It might be interesting to watch what happens in this area if man does not interfere. Will it
Mm.
become a wood again? How long will it take? Which species will be in it? Dum dum dum. I think that was my 1961 voice. It needs a lot of practice,
I
but
thought it was really good. I mean, I think we'd probably be able to get people to take votes on you having a 1960s voice for the entire next episode. But I don't want to overstress
don't
you.
encourage me. Don't encourage me. I
Oh no,
would.
I'll
I,
encourage
I,
you.
I will.
Absolument. And isn't that amazing? First of all, it was so long ago that the discourse was man. We would never do that now. We would say people,
Mm,
right? So how much we've
yes.
changed. And secondly, as you'll see in the links on the show note, there's a forest there. Oh God,
Yes.
that's so exciting.
I saw the forest because they've got the aerial shots from from the 1960s, which I guess they're both from planes or drones. So one from 1960s, it just looks like a field. Like if you're flying over just a normal flat field, a bit grassy, nothing to
Yeah.
shout about. There's forests all around it, and then the image from 2014, it's it looks like a forest. It looks like a forest,
And maybe
and
we shouldn't be surprised, but yet we are, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, because you leave the garden for a year and it gets high. Well, it gets quite high,
Hmm.
but the weird thing is how much nature contributes to sort of planting trees. I want to say organically, but it's like squirrels and different bits of wildlife planting acorns and nuts, and they just end up growing into these huge trees over the
It's
course
almost
of.
like nature doesn't need us to happen,
Oh, you know, I think
right?
you might be onto something.
Well, I mean, that's
Yeah.
what, and I know this is about Africa, but it's a similar concept that you've
Hmm.
probably heard people say that what African nations really need is the rest of us to leave them alone.
Oh, that is true.
And I wonder if the same goes for forests, right? Like if we leave it, that, like you say, the grass becomes a meadow. The meadow has a few trees grow through it, some shrubbery. That's
Hmm.
another great word I learned when I got to England. And after the assorted shrubbery comes some trees, and then it all closes over in the canopy, and some of the smaller trees die away, and it opens out, and hey presto, woodland. Super
Yes.
rad.
It's proper cool. It's proper cool, and one of the most interesting stats. Like we were surprised at how quickly it grew back, but I was really surprised that um, the UK only has 13% forest cover
Hmm.
compared to 38% across the EU.
So what that means is that when people arrive, like if we arrive today, then did you say 13%?
Yeah, 13 for the UK.
One
Yeah,
three. So
yes.
that means that if we arrived today and it was all covered in these amazing big Nottingham Forest type forests,
Mm.
then come on, maths, like around 87% of the trees would be chopped down and burned and made into things. And that's where we would be today. Now, if I was to turn
Wow.
up somewhere and chop down 87% of the trees, would you be surprised if the climate changed?
Oh, you see, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I
Hmm.
would be a bit surprised when Robin Hood falls out the tree, but
And perhaps takes my money and gives it to someone more deserving.
yeah, and that's the end of the project funding. That's it.
Safety. And on that note, I
Yeah.
hope you've enjoyed this first. How do we say it? Happy good
Um.
news,
Happy good news.
and a happy good news week to you, Jonathan.
Oh, and a happy good news week to you too, Ollie.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. And there will be more because there is an awful lot of happy good news out there.
Ciao.